so yellow. What is up, everybody? Here I am again. My name is King. Thank you for joining the channel. Please subscribe, like. Today is just going to be this stream is going to, I already said it in the description here, but this stream is going to be an like I expect to be interrupted here. I have something to meet up with, and I just wanted to keep up with my usual, show up here. And after I settle whatever I have to, I'll come back and continue with the stream, continue with the live. So as usual, like we like we spoke of yesterday, I said I was going to start reading Weep Not Child by Kenyan author Ngugi wa Thiong'o, and we had a lovely time. I had a lovely time, at least me. I hope others did, with introducing the story, introducing the book, the background of the book, the country, and the time frame which this author was writing this book. Yeah. So we learned plenty things. Like we saw, like, oh, I got to see a lot of information about the setup of the book, and also there's this insistence that this story is not um reality, it is fiction, it's not based on anything in his life, even though a lot of elements of the story, were taken from his own personal life. I mean, the author, yeah. So there was this whole I think Kenya was in a state of emergency at the point where the rebellion or the movement for an independent nation was, just starting. And while the British colonial masters, the settler colonials, they were in charge of the government. So they were hunting people that were against their presence in the land. Do you get? So it was interesting to read that. That was his reality, and then he wrote this book, okay? And so I decided that I'm going to read this book while I'm reading this other book by Apuleius, which I already started narrating yesterday as well. So we're just going to get a feel of both things, both stories going on, kind of like to spice it. My original intent, yeah. Hello, Hafsa. Hi. My original intent, yeah. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My original intent, was to actually um speak about something that is affecting my country right now. Like, there's a real issue going on in my country right now, but I don't want to be interrupted, and I already made an appointment. Like, it's not an appointment, but something just has to happen. Yeah, I have to meet up with something today. I was not prepared for it, but I have to meet up with it. So I don't want to start talking about it and be caught off by that thing happening here. So I'll just talk about how far I've come along book, and um we'll do what I want to talk about really in the next stream today as well. Hafsa, I'm fine. Hafsa, I'm curious, have you heard of this author before? Hello, Sleek. Have you heard of this author before? Ngugi wa Thiong'o is a Kenyan author. Kenya is in East Africa. Nigeria is in West Africa. It's a book. I think we even recommended it at some time in secondary school. Yeah, this author's books, actually. So, anyways, it's a very interesting story. I feel like it's interesting in the sense of we'll be taken back in time to a situation that's kind of occurring, somewhere else in the world right now. And that is the whole debate of you buy it. Oh, that would be cool if you buy it and you read it, yeah. It's about this whole settler colonialism here, and when it happened in this country called Kenya in the continent of Africa. So in Africa, Africa is divided into different regions. Yeah, I'm from Nigeria. So where this story takes place is in East Africa. Yeah, Kenya. It takes place in East Africa, Kenya. Yeah, that's where the author is from. This man, this is the author. So yeah, so I feel like he was a child, during this period of settler colonialism, by the British in his country. And he experienced a lot of sorrows. His brother was arrested, on suspicions of being a rebellion activist. Yeah, hello. Thank you, Slick, for that compliment. The brother was arrested. His mother was detained for months of, on suspicious activities here. So basically, there's this thing called emergency where the government put the whole country in under emergency. Yeah. So, anyways, we're going to go through the whole story. Actually, the focus of the story is a boy, a child. His name is what's his name? Njoroge. Yeah. So Njoroge is just a child here, and his family, want him to start going to school to learn English and to be educated according to the British man style of education here. And they put this boy on this path, believing that education is what will free the rest of the family. The issue with settler colonialism, the way it works is that when they come to your land, these colonial people, overlords, they come to the land and they just buy or possess, indigenous lands and take them from the people that owns them, people that they met there. Naveen, hi, thank you for the compliment. Naveen, thank you. So these British overlords here, they came to the country and they claimed they came to tame the land, they came to, conquer this part of the world. And people were already living there. You understand? Like, why would you feel like you're conquering something that people already are there? Like, human beings are there already. You met human beings there, you took away their lands, and you are claiming that you are conquering and finding your identity there. Big ass glasses, why are you against big frames? My this thing, I don't know, I think my frame is something. I don't want to say it, but it's not so heavy. I feel they're not bifocal, yeah, so they're not that bad. No, I just love big frames, yeah, I love big frames glasses. Do you use glasses, Navi? So, what was I saying? I was talking about how, and what I was talking about here is the mindset of this man called um, Howland. Howland -7 in both eyes. Is that not? That is kind of lesser than my own. I think that's lesser than mine. I think that's lesser than mine. -7 is lesser than minus higher up the number scale, number line. Wow. So, like, is it that you just need them to read or something? Hello, Pishita. Mine is -2.5, and I can't remember though, and 3.5, like separate levels for different eyes here. So I cannot see. Like, if I took off my glasses right now, I wouldn't be able to see the messages. As a compliment, yeah. Nasty Pishita. So the story here is like Howland here. He was disillusioned in. Is it was? Sorry, I don't know the way it goes. I don't really understand it. Is it that you're like -7? I'll have to look it up though. Functionally, is it like how bad? Like, give me an example of how it works here. If you are without your glasses, how does your eyes look? Is it astigmatism or myopic? Is it myopia or hypermetropia, hyper whatever? Mine is myopia. When I was like a child and went to the hospital, they told me um A simple myopia, and I thought maybe that meant it would go away. I've been using it ever since. This is Nigeria. This is Nigeria. Nigeria. Um, yeah. So I just want to give a quick notice that maybe like I might have a call coming for me to meet up with somebody. I need to collect some packages, and you know, the I might end the stream here. I might end the stream without like early. I don't know, but I'll definitely come back when I'm done settling it, and I'll come back and start another live stream later in the day, just in case. From Nigeria to where are you from, Naveen? So I introduced this book yesterday, and I started reading it. So I'm on chapter 5 right now. I stopped at chapter 5 because I didn't want to rush it here. But so far, the things that I've seen, is like very, very clear and simplistic descriptions of the situation on ground in their country. Yeah? And the situation on ground is that a lot of the natives of the indigenous people of Kenya, not like just Kenyans, yeah. The Kenyans believed, they before the British people came to their country, they had a prophecy from a seer that so people would come. But the prophecy also says that these people will leave. So when these British people came to their land and took over and all everything, like most of the Kenyans, they allowed it to happen. I don't say they allowed it to happen. I feel like they were forcefully, you know, overpowered, by guns and weapons and numbers and all of that. Yeah, and the naivete of just like, oh, I'm just receiving visitors to my land. Maybe I can just like welcome them, and that's how the British were received. But then they came in, this bought land, they bought lands, and then those lands they made the owners and the families of the owners of those lands to work on the land as slaves. Yeah. And these people that agree to work on the land, they agree to work on the land kind of as if they had this expectation that who else will take care of their land for them if not them. Yeah. So I'll take care of my land, so that when these white people go, I'll just continue from where I stopped. Instead of saying, no, I will work for you, this man, this is my land. They felt maybe all they had to do was just continue taking care of their land. The only thing is that from the perspective of the settler colonials, they just felt maybe, of course, you work on the land, I'm hiring you, I'm paying you for the land, you are supposed to work for me, you're supposed to be subservient to me, and because you're so agreeable to me, so that means you have made peace with the fact that I am your lord, I am the owner of this place, I'm the conqueror of this land. Like Mr. Howland's soliloquy is that Mr. Howland came from Britain, from the UK, because he left the UK, not even came, he left the UK because he was disillusioned by the First World War. He fought in the war and he thought like things would get better, but things didn't get better. So um there was just so much loss and depression. And then another major thing about Mr. Harland is that he said he was bored. He didn't know what to do with his life. He didn't feel his life was going in any direction, and there was no place in his country for him to be a fully actualized human being. And so he decided to go conquering the rest of the world to find meaning and purpose and identity. And he did that. He felt he achieved that when he arrived in Kenya. you know when he arrived in Kenya, he became a landowner, and he feels like he's the one that you know tamed the land. Meanwhile, when he arrived in Kenya, he hired this man called Ngoto is the father of our main character here, Njoroge. Yeah. Ngoto is working on the land because that is his land. That is his ancestors and his father's land. You know, and he's like depressed. Like at first, he's not so depressed as much as he consoles himself. The more the years pass and the more this Mr. Howland is not going anywhere, he keeps on telling himself that no, something big will happen. Something big will happen, and I would this man will leave my land, and when he leaves, I'll take over my ancestral land because I cannot face my ancestors knowing that I gave away the land and I don't have anything left to give my children. You get? Because something about Ngoto is a man that has two wives because polygamy was very common then. So Ngoto has two wives, Inyokabi and Injeri. Injeri is his first wife, and Nyokabi is the second wife. Nyokabi gave birth to our main character, Njoroge, while Injeri gave birth to three sons. There's an older son, there is Boro, and there's Kamau. Now, because of the First World War, or I think in the Second World War, yeah, Njoroge's son, or eldest son, that's Njeri's son, yeah, the first son of the whole family, was sent off to fight in the war against Hitler. On the side of World War, everybody was fighting Germany and they were colluding, collaborating to fight Germany and Hitler and get rid of Hitler. So he sent his son. Like, it's not as if he even have a choice. Everybody was enlisted. Every able-bodied man was enlisted to fight for the British man against Hitler. But in the hearts of the Kenyans, the people, the black people, the Africans that went to fight for this war, they just thought maybe, okay, since I'm helping you to fight against your own white brother, you get, when I come back, I should come back to what? Compensation. This is not my war. Your war is against your own white brother. Why am I involved in it? Okay, if I'm involved in it as part, it will help me as a Kenyan or as an African. Fine, I will do it, but you pay me, you compensate me. There was just this implicit sense, in their minds that they will be compensated. But the thing about war is that there is always loss, deaths, and poverty. So when Ngoto's son went to fight, in this war, he did not return. His two sons went to fight. The first son and Boro went to fight in this war. Boro came back unharmed, but the first son passed away. But Boro, you know, that is his brother. That was his brother, and the whole family was devastated by this loss. They were saddened. So Boro, most of the veterans, people that came back from the war, they came back to just become slave workers, slave hands for these same people that have possessed their own ancestral lands. So it was just a lot of disillusionment, resentment, and frustration at the way things were going, in their own country. Meanwhile, the ones that didn't go off to fight in the Second War, the white men that didn't go up to fight in the that were not able to fight in the Second War, they stayed and they remained um landowners. They entered into government. They were the ones passing laws and all of that. So it was just very, a lot of I don't think it was a confusion as much as willful misunderstanding and ignorance. Yeah, because for Howland to leave his rightful place in his country, his home country, UK, and then travel over to another continent and dispossess people of their lands, and then claim that those lands were his sign of his identity. They were recognition of his purpose, and how he has a place in the world. You get? It's just like that's just when you see yourself as the entire center of the universe, when you see yourself as the all in all, and then he kept on insisting. There's a place in the passage where he kept on insisting that he came to this land unoccupied, and I was like, and I made a note. I was like, unoccupied how? You met people here. You can't claim that. Um So the way Mr. Howland thinks of it, he says it's written as Mr. Howland felt a certain amount of victory whenever he walked through it all, talking about the land, that is Ngoto's land. He alone was responsible for taming this unoccupied wilderness. And I was like, unoccupied? You met people here. People are like, and Another thing about Mr. Howland is that when he felt he had lived, he had prospered enough, or he had, established himself enough, he sent for a woman to come and be his wife. He went back to London and he married a woman there, and he told her that she would come with him to this side of the world. And she herself, her name is Suzanne or Suzette. She came to this place, she came to this place with like a false sense of purpose. She felt like she was coming to be like in society. She was coming to be in like she just felt like she was living a different kind of society in London, to come and establish her own society in a different part of the world. But that was not the reality she lived in here, because like I said, Howland is possessed, by this sense of ownership of this land. He feels like his whole identity is tied to this land. You understand? And then Mr. Howland is not asking Ngoto, that follows him around, tells him everything. He asks Ngoto, absent-minded, you like all this? He was absorbed in admiring the land before him. And Ngoto said, it is the best land in all the country. You know? And Howland goes ahead to now say it out loud, like thinking out loud that, I don't know who will manage it after me. And Ngoto's heart jumped. He too was thinking of his children. Will the prophecy be fulfilled soon? He says, are you going back to, like in reference to him returning back to his place in London? He says, no. Mr. Howland said unnecessarily loud. And Ngoto says, you're home, you're home. He says, my home is here. That is what Howland says. Ngoto was puzzled. Would these people never go? But had not the old Kikuyu seer said that they would eventually return the way they had come? And Mr. Howland was thinking, would Stephen really do that, his son? He was not like the other one. He felt the hurt and pain of loss. The war took him away. Ngoto had never known where the other son had gone to. Now he understood. He wanted to tell of his own son. He longed to say, you took him away from me. But he kept quiet. Only he thought instead that Mr. Howland should not complain because it had been his war. It was a white on white war. Why did Africans have to fight in your war and die in your war, and then still come back and be dispossessed of their place in their hometown, in their homelands, because of like by you same invaders, you same impostors? Yeah, like that's the point, where how that's the whole sentiment going around in the country right now. Yeah, in this time in history, and it was not so long ago. It was like in 1960 something. Yeah. So anyways, the son that Howland is talking about is that when the Second World War happened, he was established in Kenya already, Kikuyu, and he was, claiming ownership of the land, claiming that he's the owner, he's the one that built the land, that the land is unoccupied. So he had a wife, like I said, and he had a son by this wife. This son he loved. He loved this son. This son was perfect, was everything. The son followed him around. The son was everything to him. But then when time came for the war, mandatory enlistment had to happen. So his son was sent along with Ngoto's son, and the both of them died. So the death of that son really threw the whole family, Howland's family, into disarray. He already had a daughter then, and so the daughter, also disillusioned by the war, started doing ministry work. She started going around, helping people as per missionary work. And so he basically had no children. Then he now decided to have another one with Suzanne or Suzette, and that one's name is Stephen. But that one was a very different son from the one that he had lost. You get that son was timid, was shy, was not friendly, was not open, but the son was still receiving. Howland was still like focusing on this honors, no matter how incompetent he seems to be or unwilling to be attached to the land the way he was. It's probable that, or it was definite in his mind that his son would take over the land. Meanwhile, Ngoto has sons as well. He has Boro that is back from the war. He has Kamau. Kamau is learning a trade. Um Kamal does not believe in education. He believes that if you don't have a land, You get, because that was the feeling in those days, that if you didn't have a land, you were not a rich man, you know. And since his father is working on under Mr. Howland, you get, he felt he needed to have a trade so that he would be able to buy a land, you know, become this type of established person, you know, by learning a trade. While the youngest son, Njoroge, they sent him to school. Why? They said if he goes to school, he would be able to, you know, beat the white man essentially at their game of cruelty, theft, occupation, colonialism, and just thievery, basically stealing people's land in their own home and calling it yours is theft. You get, it's settler colonialism, okay. And anyways, they felt like because the people of Kenya didn't understand the wily ways of these white people that came to their land, yeah, because they didn't understand it, they were able to be. That's why they were tricked, they were deceived into becoming slaves in their own land. You get. So I think it's just a very interesting place to be. There's so many wonderful things that you discover when you are reading in this book. Yeah, you discover in reading this book. One cool thing again is also storytelling. Storytelling was very important to the people of Kenya at this time because I think he mentions it. I feel like from what I read here, when people told stories, it was usually to their children, it was usually to people around them, and it was people that had experienced the big war. You know, that what they call the Second World War, the big war, and the people that had experienced it, you know, came back with stories of, you know, horror, seeing a new country, being among the white people, how they live, you know, and everybody else listened to them. You understand? So, and then there's also this habit of storytelling that Njoroge really enjoyed, that his mom told him stories at night. Yes, his mom was a good storyteller. His mom's name is Inyokabi. Yes. So Inyokabi is a good storyteller. You get, and her stories entertain all of the children. You understand? Both Kamal, both Boro, you know. And another thing that is very peculiar about Ungoto's family is that although his was a polygamous, you know, style, there was peace in his home. Yeah, the wives had an understanding, the wives worked together, and all the children, you know, they saw themselves as one. They saw themselves as one. You understand? So it was a very peculiar, it was peculiar, you know, for like the typical nature of a polygamous home in Kenya, even at that time. So, anyways, as I was saying, storytelling, you know, is important to Njoroge because Njoroge is this kind of person that is very he has an inner world. Yeah, he has an inner world. He's a very sensitive kid. You know, he feels for. There's one time he has a friend here called Mihaki. Mihaki is the daughter of a rich um hello fast Kakdula. um his daughter, Mihaki is the daughter of a Kenyan man named Jacobo, and Jacobo is a wealthy Kenyan native. He's a wealthy Kenyan man, okay, and he's one of those few Kenyans that held on to their land. You know, that whose lands were not taken away. Maybe they could buy out the white man, or they could actually, you know, negotiate properly so that they do not end up being dispossessed of their land. So Jacobo was very rich, you know, and I think Ngoto also worked. Jacobo answered to Mr. Howland, yeah. Jacobo answered to Mr. Howland, and what else? So his daughter Mwihaki is friends with Njoroge. So I'm mentioning Mwihaki so that you can get a sense of how sensitive Njoroge is. Njoroge is a very sensitive little child. You know, he thinks of everybody. He kind of feels the pains of people and things around him. There's a point where him and his friend Mihaki, they are playing, and she's like, "Let's play with flowers." And her own playing with flowers means she would pluck flowers, and you know, they would throw it at each other and all of that. But Njoroge was like, "Let's not play with flowers," because he explains to us that when you pluck flowers, the blooms die. You get. And it's just very cool. Like, it just shows you so many ways that Njoroge, is a very sensitive kid. You understand? So anyways, Njoroge is excited to be educated. He's excited to learn. you know there's this place in chapter 4 where Ngoto was like telling him about education. Ngoto was telling him that like it's good for you to go to school. Yeah, and Njoroge listened to his father. He instinctively knew that an indefinable demand was being made on him. Even though he was so young, he knew that for him, education would be the fulfillment of a wider and more significant vision, a vision that embraced the demand made on him. This demand is indefinable, remember that, not only by his father, but also by his mother, his brothers, and even the village. He saw himself destined for something big, and this made his heart glow. So, like, I feel like I can relate a lot to Njoroge, being a child, like when there's this particular child in family that everybody expects to be this like everybody expects their education to be something that frees the entire family, yeah, in a sense. Yeah, I can relate to that aspect. But the thing about children like that is that when they grow up, and they get into the real world, they are disillusioned by how, you know all of the tools that they felt they had, like, that is education. All of the ways education equipped them is still not enough to cope with the reality of the brutality and exploitation and oppression that exists in the real world. Yeah. So I feel like going ahead with Njoroge's story, we're going to see a lot of disillusionment here. I think a very common theme here in this book is disillusionment. Disillusionment of his father, Ngoto, seeing that the prophecy that he has held on to all his life while toiling, tirelessly for the white man in his own land that was stolen from him by this white man. Hello, Armen. Hello, Armen. My name is King. I'm from Nigeria. So anyways, the the disillusionment that comes, when Ngoto wakes up one day, not wakes up, but he had this interaction with his son Boro, the one that survived the Second World War and was at home, and dissatisfied and sad and changed by everything he saw in the war, and also the loss of his elder brother in the war. So all of that, when his son Boro, that son, confronts Ngoto about his place, toiling as a slave in his own land, listening to, being subservient to the settler colonialist called Mr. Howland. Like, Ngoto starts to, it feels as if he starts to distrust, the prophecy that he had trusted in all his life. Um, there's this point, like I was mentioning about a storytelling moment here. So Unyokabi promised to tell her son Njoroge's story, and Kamal also came to listen to that story. But Njoroge, sorry, Unyokabi, the mother of Njoroge, was now saying that instead of me today, I'll ask your father to tell you the story. Like, let your father tell you a story instead. So Ngoto obliges. He tells the children a story. So now let's now listen to the story. So I'm going to read out the story. I hope you can follow the story along. Um, so the story starts. There was wind and rain, and there was also thunder and terrible lightning. The earth and the forest around Kerinyaga shook. The animals of the forest, whom the Creator had recently put there, were afraid. There was no sunlight, and this went on for many days, so that the whole land was in darkness. Because the animals could not move, they just sat and moaned with the wind. The plants and trees remained dumb. It was, our elders tell us, all dead except for the thunder. a violence that seemed to strangle life. It was this dark night whose depth you could not measure. Not you or I can conceive of its solid blackness which would not let the sun pierce through it. But in this darkness, at the foot of Kerinyaga, a tree rose. At first it was a small tree and grew up, finding a way even through the darkness. It wanted to reach the light and the sun. This tree had life. It went up, sending forth the rich warmth of a blossoming tree. A holy tree in the dark night of thunder and mourning. This was Mukuyu, God's tree. Now, you know that at the beginning of things, there was only one man, Gikuyu, and one woman, Mumbi. It was under this Mukuyu that he first put them. And immediately the sun rose and dark night melted away. The sun shone with a warmth that gave life and activity to all things. The wind and lightning and thunder stopped. The animals stopped wandering and moved. They no longer mourned but gave homage to the Creator and Gikuyu and Mumbi. And the Creator, who is also called Murungu, took Gikuyu and Mumbi from his holy mountain. He took them to the country of ridges near Syriana and there stood them on a big ridge before he finally took them to Mukuruwe, Wagatanga, about which you have heard so much. But he had shown them all the land. Yes, children, God showed Gikuyu and Mumbi all the land and told them, "This land I hand over to you, O man and woman. It is yours to rule till in serenity sacrificing only to me your God under my sacred tree." So just before we go ahead there, if we go through the reading of the story, let's pick apart some things from this story that Ngoto told. So we're talking about a darkness here, a darkness where nothing moved, where the sun could not pierce, and where everybody was stuck in limbo, groaning and moaning. Nothing was growing. The animals were, in pain. They were sad, basically. And then a tree started growing, and this tree is called life. And so this tree grows and breaks through the darkness, and immediately it breaks through the darkness, the sun comes over and melts away all of this darkness. So in my perspective, I feel like this period of darkness and stagnation and no growth and suffering of the animals or the creatures is actually the period of settler colonialism in Kenya. Come, let me close my door. Sorry about that. So I perceive, or I'm trying to understand, or I'm taking the symbolism of the darkness in the entire world at that period to be the presence of the colonial masters in their country, Kenya. Okay, I feel that yes, that is when everybody was stuck in limbo. There's no way colonial masters exist in any place and the people of that place are going to be free. They're going to suffer, they're going to be stuck. They have no ownership over their life, they have no sovereignty over their lives. They know not where they are going or how they're going to be or end up. They can't make plans for their children or their own future either. So everybody's groaning, and then a tree comes. And when we're talking about this tree now, I already mentioned that in this period of time where the story is setting, there is a man called Jomo Kenyatta. Jomo Kenyatta came from um, the UK. He came back to his country, Kenya, and he decided to be a voice for independence of the country from the settler colonial masters. Hello, so sick. Hi, I'm okay. I'm good. So he came and he was a voice, for his people. He felt like they had overstayed their welcome. You have come, you have seen the land. Go back to your country. We have fought your wars. We have died in your wars. What else could you be doing in another man's land when your country is fine? Your country still stands, independent and sovereign. Why are you still here? So Jomo Kenyatta was the voice of that, and he started having followers, people that believed in him. Okay, and so the only thing about Jomo is that in the real world, yeah, Jomo was sorry, in the real world, Jomo was arrested by the British government and thrown to serve 7 years of hard labor on suspicion of what um what's that thing when you he was like they trumped up charges against him, that he was causing like an uprising against the government, and he was stirring rebellion amidst the people, and all of that, as if that was not supposed to be expected. But anyways, colonialism does not work on logic and rationale. It works on somebody, a group of people, seeing themselves as the center of the entire world and demanding that everybody else needs to orbit around them and serve them and be subservient to them, which is just plain stupid. Yeah, stupid. Colonialism is not rooted in anything aside ignorance and stupidity and intolerance and bigotry and hatred. So anyways, when Ngoto, so I'm going on with the story. When Ngoto goes on with the story, like when he ends the story there, narration tells us that there is something strange in Ngoto's eyes. He looked as if he had forgotten all about those who were present. Kamau, Njoroge, Boro, Kori, and many other young men and women who had come to make the long hours of the night shorter by listening to stories. It was as if he was telling a secret for the first time, but to himself. Boro sat in a corner. The expression on his face could not be seen. He did not once move, but kept on looking past his father. It was as if Boro and Ngoto were the only two who were there at the beginning when these things came to be. Njoroge too could imagine the scene. He saw the sun rise and shine on a dark night. He saw fear, gloom, and terror of the living things of the Creator melting away, touched by the warmth of the holy tree. And then Njoroge asked this question: where did the land go? And everyone turned to look at him. Njoroge Ngoto answers, I am old now, but I too have asked that question in waking and sleeping. I've said, what happened, O Murungu, to the land which you gave us? Where, O Creator? Hello, Nikki. Hi, welcome to the chat. I'm reading this book. Where, O Creator, went our promised land? At times, I've wanted to cry or harm my body to drive away the curse that removes us from the ancestral land. I ask, have you left your children naked, O Murungu? And then Ngoto goes ahead to start kind of answering his own question. Okay, oh my god, that's cool. Enjoy your time playing piano, Nikki. That's cool, that's cool. I hope you have fun. Although I know it's a lot of hard work. um so whatever. Um 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 Ngoto, starts to explain himself to himself, kind of saying that, oh, there was a big drought, and it was an evil spirit who was jealous of the prosperity of our own God and all of that. Then there was the white man that came, and he came to bring war and all of that to us in our land. You get, and Ngoto says that he also fought in this war. Okay, he fought in the First World War, or they call it the Great War, but this one they call it the Big War. He fought in the Great War, and he says he did not fight. He was just made to clear routes for British soldiers. He was like an errand boy because he was very young then, and all of that. But then when he now came back after fighting in the war, all of the lands had gone. So that explains how he lost his ancestral land, because he was sent off, not sent off, but he was taken, I'm sure, without permission or anything, to fight in the war, mandatory. And he came back. His father's lands, his ancestral lands were gone, taken over by white people, white colonials, white settlers. He says, my father and many others had moved from our ancestral lands. He died lonely, a poor man, waiting for the white man to go. So now the prophecy fulfillment means that one day this white man will leave the country. That was the fulfillment of the prophecy. But his father did not witness that happen. He's getting to, advanced age, and he has still not witnessed this white man go. His children, one has died in another war by these same white people against their white fellows, and the land has still not come to them. So he's like, I have walked there in that my father's land, waiting for this prophecy to be fulfilled. Anyways, I made notes, so let me just say, Boro is the second eldest son of Ngoto, and Boro also fought in the war, like I have been saying, where his elder brother died. That's Second World War. And when Boro listening to his father speak and ruminate and think about all of these things, Boro says, with a growing anger, he says, how could these people have let this white man occupy the land without acting? And what was all this superstitious belief in a prophecy? In a whisper that sounded like a shout, he said, to hell with the prophecy. How can you continue working for a man who has taken your land? How can you go on serving him? And he walked out without waiting for an answer. And so that is also like, that's a thing I feel that we also have to acknowledge in this era, yeah, where, especially in this country where I live in, yeah, there's a lot of things going on that is wrong with this country, but we are not, me, I'm not bound, I'm not there, but the people, majority of the masses in this country are bound by religion and the beliefs that religion tells them that, don't worry, God will solve all our problems. Don't worry, God is going to make this country a better place. Don't worry, God will do this for us. No, 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 don't fight your oppressors. No, 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 no. No, don't fight your oppressors. God will do it for us. God will give you your just due. And eventually, actually, we know the end of the story now. Kenya actually got their independence, but it was not because they waited around for a prophecy to be fulfilled. It was because of people like Boro, people like Kenyatta, that stood up and decided to speak against these people occupying their land. They stood up. It was, I'm sure, I've not read the entire details of it, but I'm sure it was a bloody one. Kenyatta was arrested. People were being killed, kidnapped. Even this author, his mother, his brother were detained on suspicions of cooperating with the uprising, cooperating with the nationalist movement. They were arrested, they were detained for months, So it's like, things are going to happen. Like, whatever you want to, especially when it comes to wishing for better or wanting better for yourself as a countryman, like, especially for this country, if you want better for this country, there has to be a level of discomfort, and we also have to shake off the shackles of religion and superstitions and prophecies and pastors. We have to shake off those things. Those things are really holding people down, because they have been a major, those religion is the core of majority of the Nigerians I know. Not I know, but majority of Nigerians, their core is God that is there. Some religious belief, some religious expectation is there. Most people will say, before the country destroys, at least I would have gone to heaven. Like, rapture is going to come and save me, I'll go to heaven, I'll just focus on, doing well so that I go to heaven. Meanwhile, they are not recognizing how they are behaving righteously coincidentally agrees with siding with the oppressors, laying low and allowing the oppressors to continue to exploit you. That is how religion is framed, taught to people. Don't give unto Caesar what is Caesar. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. So like, it's just so stupid. Yeah. His father, obviously, after this, interaction with Boro, his son Ungoto, he's changed. In the coming chapters, pages, we see how Ungoto is, recalibrating, reorienting himself, starting to look at himself that, wait, why am I still where I am? Why am I toiling so hard for this land? That previous misconception of, if I work hard for my land, when these people go, I'll take it over. They're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. So if these people don't go, so that means you never ever ever come into ownership of your ancestral land. And now these people, now the people at the time, they were not held by religious, sorry, they were not held by Christian superstitions or prophecy. This is their own local indigenous god, Murungu. Okay, Murungu, according to his prophet, prophesied that a tree will come out, and there'll be sun in the country. Now there'll be light, and all of the land belong to the people of the land. But still, is religion. Religion expects, religion trains you to sit and fold your hands and watch life pass you by. They will fill your head with what anybody should expect of, a life. They'll fill your head with purpose. They'll fill your head with dreams, mostly dreams. They fill your head with dreams, and then you end up sleeping all your life, dreaming, when the only way, you can live the life you see in your dream is by waking up. And somehow this book is so reflective of where we are right now as a global whatever, where we are all over the globe, especially in this country. you know in this country, there is no obvious settler colonial presence here. What we have are um, monopolistic overlords. What we have is a government that was established on exploitation and thefts and corruption. That's what we have. And these people continue to be in government. They never ever go and live ordinary lives. Their family members, their children benefit from the thefts and the exploitation and the corruption. And then when those ones get all of the whole education and training, they come back to the country and occupy the positions that their parents or their uncles and aunties have grown too decrepit to continue to stay in. Okay. And I feel like it's not like one for one, in this story and the reality of Nigeria right now, but I feel like we can also draw like parallels. We can draw a sort of analogy, like we can draw references, between the two situations. And I've not finished, I'm just in chapter 5 here, so I'll continue reading the book, I will go on. But the thing right now here is just, there's this thing that I feel, in this move where everybody's now agitating. Like, there's a sort of agitation, mostly online, of people, Nigerians, wanting better for the country. But I fear that in this generation, that they're actually trying to make moves to want better for the country, like moves offline to do better, to make Nigeria better. I fear that loudest voices have been Loudest voices are coming from places of intolerance, bigotry, superstitions, you know, female oppression, all of that is coming from those are the loudest voices right now that are pushing for a better Nigeria. And I worry that um there is no intersectionality, practiced in this freedom movement that I feel is going to start in this country. There is no intersectionality, there is no, what to call it, yeah, just intersectionality. There is no class solidarity, there is no class awareness, there is no, people still worship wealth, people still worship um people still have aspirational middle class dreams, yeah. People still dream to be oppressors, people still dream to occupy positions of power, and it's like that is not what we should be aspiring to, you know. I feel like, but those are the loudest voices right now, in this sphere of discussion about freedom in Nigeria, about freedom from oppression in Nigeria. People still worship wealth, people still see billionaires as aspirational, yeah. And I fear that it is just going to be the same shade of gray. It's just going to be the same shade of gray. We're just going to exist in a different shade of gray, like, okay, not same but different shades of gray. I fear that that is where it's going to land us in if we don't. And I don't want to fear, because when I was talking, like, I was reading this book, and then I got a news. I saw a news online that really stressed me out, and then I was trying to look up more details about the news to talk about on stream. And as I was thinking about it, I started to think about food for the day. What am I going to have for lunch today? Like, how am I going to prepare food for my family, in such a way that everybody will eat and be satisfied? How much money am I going to spend on transport? How much money am I going to spend on pieces of meat? You get, I'm not talking about chicken, I'm not talking about fish or anything. Just buy maybe 500 naira meat in the market so everybody will eat meat. You know, let's just, and again, that money now we have to halve it, because transport fare for to and from the market, is already an entire, like, it's equal to the amount of meat I want to buy. I have to cut the price in half, and then I have to worry about um how long this is going to last. This is just one day's meal. How am I going to make it so that everybody will eat and be satisfied? And then there's bank charges, like, it's just, and then we have to eat the same type of meal, like 3 times in a week we eat the same thing, like in different variations. And I'm like, and I was tired, because I was reading about what happened recently, like the new information that came out in the news today, and I'm reading about Njoroge's life, and it's just like, which one? Like, I just got exhausted. I was like, maybe I should not even bother reading, I'm tired. you know I felt so tired. Hello Ikechukwu, hi. I felt so tired. Is this is well that used to tire me, to be honest? Like, this is well, it's just, when, how are we going to get to the wellness? How are we going to get to the wellness? We have to start thinking of how we get to this wellness. Something that there is, okay, I don't want to, because I know I started this stream because I was like, I'm worried that, I'm expecting something to, like, I'm expecting a package, for somebody, and I don't want to miss the package. So I feel like maybe, like, my stream, I might end up cutting my stream halfway. That's not, like, I don't want to start talking about it, but like I said, everything is related. The book I'm reading is related to the issue that is going on in Nigeria, and the issue that's going on in Nigeria, there's this big news I also heard that is stressing me out as well. So it's like, where am I going to focus my attentions on? You understand? How will I divide my attention? So I was like, let me just come online and talk about the book. Then I will do another live stream later in the day to talk about the major issue. But since we have gotten to this point in the conversation, I just want to say, like, a little tidbit of the thing I heard about today, and the thing that, is really just depressing me, like truly, yeah. It's not even depressing as much as it's just tired. I'm just tired, I'm just physically tired about the whole situation. And is that I got this news. I don't know if anybody has also heard it, but it's everywhere on online that Dangote refinery fired 1,000 Nigerian workers because they agreed to sign with a union, Pengasan. They agreed to sign with a union, and this morning they were all fired from their jobs, while all the foreign workers are still keeping their jobs in the company. And the reason why he cites this, let me not say he because it's a group now. The reason why the refinery cites the firing thing is because what they said, there's claims of sabotage on their production processes and everything. And then I was reading through people's reaction, and people were now saying things like, fellow Nigerians living in the same Nigeria, saying things like Nigerians are wicked. That do you think it's easy for somebody to get a loan of $9 billion to run a company? And is the refinery not for everybody? And I was like, what are we talking about here? What are we talking about here? Why are we standing billionaires in this country? Why are there fighters for billionaires online and not the workers that woke up to see themselves sacked from a job that I'm sure they've planned their lives around? Why? And I was just so tired reading about it. Yeah, I was like, maybe I should actually find out what is going on with this issue, of Dangote, like the refinery and the firing talk. I was like, okay, let me look it up. So apparently, the workers voted to be in a union. Refinery workers. Now, first of all, before we start, why do unions exist? Unions exist to protect the interest of the workers. Okay, because at the end of the day, you cannot trust your existence to a rich man, to a wealthy man. Okay, he's going to eat you and go about his day if you are not on his level. Also, when they run businesses as entities. Okay, the business is the entity. You, the worker, you are not more human than his business or their business. Okay, you, the human, you are more or less just a figure, you know in his business. The business is more alive than you, so you are disposable as a worker to any man's business. Okay, the business is more alive than you as a worker. You are just a figure and you are disposable. You are replaceable. So when a businessman is opening something as life-threatening and dangerous as the working conditions of a refinery, I feel like we need to put aside our, stressing about how unions are extreme in this country and how they can be hijacked. Let's put it aside and first of all focus on the bigger issue. Hello, Gaurav. Welcome to the stream. Girl, I'm talking about my country and complaining about it as usual. So I don't know if you're interested in that. How was your exam? So the bigger issue here um, is that the dangerous working conditions of a refinery, it is too much. Is greater than your suspicions of a union hijacking, you know, this man's business. It is greater. The conditions of working in a refinery means you have to be ready for life-altering disabilities. Objects are always falling in those conditions, and if one of those like iron structures fall on a human being's head, there's only two things: either immediate death or permanent disability. Okay, to the businessman, he can just hire another person, but to this one person, this one worker, his life has changed forever. If he has a family supporting with that business, they are what? They become what? Destitute overnight because they've lost the source of income. So what are we talking about here? Unions are vital for any industry. Unions are important. Go look up conditions of a refinery, the working conditions of a refinery, and come back to me. They are working with acids. They're working with acids, and again they are working with what? Petrochemicals. Petrochemicals are prone to spontaneous combustion. Fires can break out at any time. Then the conditions of working, like there's a possibility of suffocation. A worker can be forgotten or like get absent minded and then suffocate to death in a refinery. It happens. All of these dangers are what a union is there to protect you from. If not from at least protecting your life, but at least making sure there is compensation in cases of disabilities. Then you look at the other side of the conversation. A multi-billion-dollar group. Aliko Dangote is worth, as of checking it this morning, $24.5 billion. This refinery he opened, Dangote refinery, not he, but I assume it's the group, the Dangote group. They opened it with a $9 billion investment. The first, like he says this refinery plan started in 2013, and he mentions that he's going to bring his own personal money, $3.3 billion, while getting the rest of the investment from commercial loans with banks. Now I don't have any access to those loans and how they were sourced, but from 2013 is when he started his desire to, when he declared his desire to have his refinery. So now this refinery is standing on its 2 feet, and it is operating in where Lekki Free Trade Zone in Lagos. Okay. Now, for a $1 billion corporation, yeah, how do I go about explaining this now? The issue here is that the problem is the beauty, the attractiveness of this refinery story, this refinery dream, which I've been very aware of when I was a child. I didn't pay like how do you call it, intense attention to it, but I was very aware because I was like, oh, that will mean more jobs, because then as a child all the thing I heard was, oh, no job, no job. I grew up to, and the job situation is even worse than before. But I was like, yes, let there be refinery here, let's stop importing oil, blah blah blah, let there be jobs. And now you employ. Now, okay, another thing about the refinery you have to understand is that this refinery, he contracted 2 different countries for different operations, different management of operations in the refinery. He contracted, let me open my notes because I made notes of it here. Let me be accurate. So he contracted, the main contractor, for this refinery is the China National Chemical Engineering. That is China's state-owned CNEC. And China, this contract, they signed a contract of $520 for them to do what in the refinery? To do large-scale engineering, procurement, and construction work at the site. Then he also, that's the Dangote, he contracted Engineers India Limited. This is state-owned Indian firm, and they were appointed in March of 2014. They signed a contract of $139 million for provisions of what? Project management services for the refinery and polypropylene plant. Okay. So these people that were contracted, obviously, they're going to bring in what? Their workforce. Of course. So the people that he fired today, 24th, they are all Nigerian workers. All of them. No single Nigerian worker was spared. but he has his contractors from China and India. Those ones remain, and I'm sure those ones are protected by unions as well. Those ones are protected by unions in their country as well. So I wouldn't call them union busting, okay? And I'm sure the group Dangote Refinery adheres to the requirement of these people's unions, because I'm sure it will be stated in the contracts. So he's saying now that the group is saying that um, people are allowed, like he says that he's fearing sabotage of his work. But we need to take the story back, because now Nigerians are only hearing this side of the news. Do you know that on September 17th, on September 12th, NUPENG, Nigerian Union of Petroleum Engineering Workers and all of that, that is a union. NUPENG signed a hello Philip, hi. NUPENG signed this agreement of a resolution of workers' rights was signed with Dangote. No, I'm not a nurse. Why? Why do you ask? They signed a resolution with Dangote September 12th, okay? And they, hello Naziwa Allen, hi from Uganda, welcome to the chat. Hi, my name is King. Thank you for joining the chat. Please subscribe. I appreciate your presence here. So they signed a resolution of workers' rights with this group, Dangote Refinery, okay? They signed it. But immediately after signing it, Nupeng now alleged, these are all allegations, okay, that Dangote drivers were instructed to remove union stickers from their truck. From Nigeria. Hi, welcome to the chat. I'm from Nigeria. So, Dangote drivers were instructed to remove union stickers from their trucks and forcefully load the facility, which goes against the violation, which violated the protocols, yeah, of the resolution. This is an allegation here. Yeah. And then Nupeng also alleged that Aliyu Dantata flew, that is a member of Dangote's group, he flew over the site of the resolution in a helicopter and summoned the Navy allegedly to intimidate union officials. And this made Nupeng to alert their members that everybody should be aware that it is possible that this group are going to impinge on workers' rights, and force them to be under inhumane working conditions while violating everything they resolved with Nupeng already. Now, these are all allegations, but this happened in September 12th of this year. Okay, all of this conversation. Then, after this resolution and all of this confusion happened, Nupeng made this alert. Now, how Nupeng worked was that Nupeng blocked the drivers, Dangote drivers, from driving, Dangote refinery drivers. They blocked them on the road. They stopped them from working. Because that is what a union does. I don't understand what you mean by sabotage. That's what union does. Okay, union have to step in and block work. That is how strikes work. You're not supposed to be able to go about your work peacefully when there's a strike. But to the way the Dangote group is presenting themselves as this poor businessman, this one person party, one person group that is just trying to do business, trying to help the economy, and they are being sabotaged left and right. And it's like, it's supposed to feel that way, because that is how unions work. Unions are not there to make you feel comfortable. They're there to bring alerts to possible violations of workers' rights. And they have to do so because these workers, their livelihood depends on your employment. So if somebody is depending on you to feed them, how are they going to be able to speak up and stand up to your exploitation without risking being fired, without risking a loss of this said livelihood? That is why unions exist. And the thing about Dangote Group has always, like right from when they opened the refinery, yeah, I think when they inaugurated it in 22nd of May 2023, they said they are very, very open to people joining unions in their company. Of course, people should join it. That they don't have an issue with their workers being unionized. It's not a problem. So I'm telling you what happened on September 12th. Did you know, or do Nigerians know, is the general populace aware that on September 17th, this same month, Dangote Refinery, represented by Ibrahim San, filed a restraining order from the industrial court upon Nupeng on September 17th. I don't think Nigerians are aware of the machinations of this storyline. So in the storyline, Dangote filed a restraining order from the industrial court, which is where Nupeng would actually, is actually supposed to take their case to be heard. Dangote Refinery went to court and filed a restraining order, and this restraining order was granted by the judge. This restraining order was granted by the judge upon Nupeng, and let me now tell you, Nupeng, its members, its agents, its privies, its representatives, its assigns, and whatsoever and however that is representative of Nupeng is restrained from obstructing Dangote Refinery's businesses, operations basically. And now here comes the most interesting part. This happened September 17th this month. And this restraining order is to last 7 days. What is today's date? What is today's date? September 24th. And September 24th, immediately the restraining order ends. What does he do? He fires all his workers. He fires all his workers. He fires all his workers that had already signed to Pengasan, another union. I don't understand. Like, can you see how manipulative this entire system is? How this group are manipulating Nigerians. This is somebody that is going to sell his product to Nigerians. This is somebody that Nigerians are going to be dependent on going forward for PMS, petroleum motor spirits. That's petrol, fuel. He did this. He fired 1,000 Nigerian workers from his refinery. On the eve of the restraining order being lifted. So now he doesn't have to bear the consequences of indiscriminate firing of his workers that normally a union is supposed to protect its members. You can't just wake up one morning and fire all your workers. That is why unions exist. It is discriminatory. It is insensible, and it is a sign of like dictatorship, sort of. It is the way monopolistic overlords behave. That is why unions exist, to protect workers, because the work that they like. And then he says as much as people have the right, the group says, as much as people have the right to join union, he also wants to encourage the right, because joining union is voluntarily, yeah. He says he also wants to encourage the right of the workers that refuse to join a union. And it's like, how can somebody that is well thinking and that has eaten well choose not to join a union if it's not that they are desperate to survive? If it's not that they are at their wit's end, if it's not that they are at, he says, since joining a union is voluntary, yes, people can also choose not to join a union. And I want to give those people a chance. But the people that have joined unions, I have to fire you because I suspect people are going to sabotage my operations. And his the statement of the group, there's a bullet point of all of the things that he's saying that he's using to defend his stance. And Nigerians in the comments, not knowing the background of this situation, are busy going, if you two have 9 billion, go and open your refinery. Are you dumb? Are you dumb? Like, is there something wrong with you? Why are you standing a billionaire? Do you know how economy works? Like, are you dumb? Do you know what fuel is to an economy? Like, way back when, I think it was last year or something, there was a news outlet, there's a news bite of Dangote saying that, oh, it's not a monopoly, oh, he's not a monopoly. When he was trying to get licensing to start his refinery operation, they were like, Nupeng was sending out like suspicions of him being a monopolist, because of labor, his conditions of labor in his companies were bad. And it's like, no, I'm not a monopolist though. What do you mean by monopoly? I actually encourage other people to join the business. I actually encourage other private players in the refinery game to join and to participate and run. I'm not a monopoly. I'm not interested in controlling the markets. So let us look at the moves that Dangote has made, and let us see if he is truly not being monopolistic. Dangote has Aliko Dangote is an old name in the game. Okay, started from sugar or what, and then cement, and then construction materials, and whatever. All those ones, their background. What I'm focusing on now is this refinery thing. So Dangote, what did he do? Let me read my notes. So on October 11th, 2024, the federal government permits marketers to lift fuel directly from Dangote refinery. You ask yourself, how? Like, is that a big deal? Are they not supposed to go straight to him or something? Like, no, because there's already NNPC, which is state-owned petroleum company. Okay, NNPC provides subsidy for fuels. You get that we buy, that marketers buy, not we directly the people, but marketers are we directly buy from these filling stations and all. NNPC provided subsidy. Okay, but on 11th of October, the federal government permitted marketers to now buy from Dangote refinery. This confirms speculation. This is from channels, Punch News, Punch newspaper. This confirms the speculation that NNPC will no longer be the sole off-taker of the Dangote fuel. Minister of Finance and Chairman of the Naira Crude Sale Implementation Committee, Wale Edun, says this directive is issued by the Federal Executive Council for a transition of operations, that is a fully deregulated market for all petroleum products. Moving forward, petroleum products marketers are now able to purchase PMS, that is petrol premium motor spirits, directly from local refineries without the intermediary roles of NNPC. Marketers are encouraged to initiate direct purchases from refineries on mutually negotiated commercial terms. So there are several things I want to pay attention to here. First of all, deregulation of the market, petroleum products, deregulation of petroleum markets, whatever. Then intermediary role of NNPC. Then Naira crude sale. So let's start from Naira crude sale. So Naira for crude is like a project or like a policy where the government says they want crude oil to be traded in naira now to protect the market from foreign exchange fluctuations. Abi, that sounds like a good idea. Hello Power, I'm from Nigeria. Welcome to the chat. My name is King. Protect the naira from protect the market from foreign exchange fluctuations. Okay. And the people that we are going to deal with naira for crude is what Dangote. You people that buy from Dangote buy in naira. Okay, so we no longer have to worry about, oh, how much is it in dollar, how much is it in this. But that is just a simplification of the real consequences of this kind of trading with a private player like Dangote Refinery. Because now we have to consider Dangote. Let's look at Dangote Refinery here. Dangote Refinery was giving like Dangote Refinery became, I think last year, I didn't check the date of the whatever of the news report, but Dangote Refinery became the sole supplier of jet fuel, that is jet A1 fuel, used by most jet around the world aside from America. This the sole supplier in this country, and he's not a monopoly though. Sole supplier of jet fuel. Okay, I don't know if anybody noticed that early this year there was a lot of crying about ticket prices in flying and how even planes stopped flying because of what? Fuel prices going up, because of what? Fuel hikes, because of what? They could not get fuel, jet fuel is so expensive. All the ticket prices have gone up. Jet fuel, oh my god, planes are not flying again. They refuse to fly because they don't have jet fuel and they strike and all of that. That jet fuel is linked to what? Dangote Refinery. That is where they buy their fuel from. And Dangote Refinery started making it early this year or last year. That's when he was giving this delegation that, oh, it's only Dangote that will be the sole supplier of jet fuel in this country. And the minister, what's the name of this guy? Minister of something. Did I write it down? Let me see. I think I wrote it down somewhere. I didn't write it down. But there is this Minister of Communication and Information, I think, that said that it is good for us to make Dangote the only supplier of jet fuel in the country, because that would encourage competition in the marketplace, and that would encourage people to also, private refineries to also come out and, start refining jet fuel and all of that. I didn't write it down, but there's a news where they allocated him the sole supplier of jet fuel in this country, and we know how during like the ending of last year and early this year, there's a lot of noise about jet fuel prices being too expensive, and now places that you used to fly, like local flights in the country, became like 5 times the price to fly because of what? Jet fuel. Why? You trace it back to Dangote refinery. Just trace it back to him. Now you can trace it back to Dangote refinery because of this other aspect of that statement, which is um, market deregulation. What is deregulation? Deregulation is the removal of government regulations or restrictions in a particular market, industry, or economy intended to create more competitors within an industry. Opponents of this say it leads to ethically questionable business practices, removes accountability, and leads to a lack of transparency on how businesses operate. Now, fuel deregulation in our country, Nigeria, began in 1978 but was formalized under Obasanjo administration in 2003. There was complete deregulation under Jonathan administration in 2012, while in 2020 COVID period, the downstream sector regulators implemented a deregulated system for petrol, allowing international oil prices and market forces of demand and supply to determine its retail price. Now, those sentences, international oil prices and market forces of demand and supply to determine retail price, those things, when you say market forces of demand and when you say international oil prices, I thought we were saying that, I thought they were telling us that when Dangote starts selling for us, we won't have to worry. When they remove NNPC, they told us that we won't have to worry about dollar prices, that when we do naira to crude, it will protect us from dollar fluctuations. Hello, hello, Dali. Hello, Princey. Hi, hi. I'm from Nigeria. Thank you for that. Thank you. Um. So. The whole protection they promised us with Naira for crude policy, yeah, that Dangote would be the one, providing us with such prices and whatnot. The regulations does not. The regulations leaves us open to still leaves us open to fluctuations of international oil prices. Like we're still being affected by the foreign market either ways. So where is the protection that Naira for crude would, give us? You get. Then the process of removing NNPC. Thank you. Thank you for enjoying my video. Thank you for that. The process of NNPC removing its subsidy was a long game in my own opinion. Now NNPC is state owned, and NNPC is under the control of what I think is state owned, but federal government controls it all. It's in the government, some arm of the government controls it, yeah. So anyways, NNPC used to be this middleman for us, yeah. Before this fuel hike, how were they the middleman for us? The thing is that NNPC would buy petrol from refined petrol, that's PMS, from Dangote refinery at 898.78 naira per litre. And they sell to marketers, that's all these filling stations, they sell it to marketers at what, 765.99 naira per litre. So they are shouldering a subsidy of almost 133 naira per litre for the masses of Nigerians. So that is what they were doing for us. That's what NNPC was doing for us. But now NNPC withdrew, from being this intermediary. Why? Why did NNPC do that? Because of debt. Now let's go back to the beginning where before that was in 2021. Dangote was like, getting ready to open the refinery in 2022. And then FG now said they will buy a stake of 20% in Dangote refinery with NNPC. Okay, so the NNPC would have a 20% stake in Dangote refinery, in a way to control its excesses, to kind of, be this arm of government that's, regulating in a way, not entirely, but sort of regulating in a way Dangote and its its prices or its behaviors in the market. So they say they'll buy it, and that 20%, they bought it. They said they agreed, they signed the document for that stock price, for that share in Dangote refinery. They signed it before they got the money for it. So that is like what, a debt situation, right? And they promised they would pay that 20% was worth $19 billion. Okay, $19 billion. They said they would do it. That's part of the investment and all. Now, in that period, before October, before the announcement was made by that minister that NNPC would no longer be the intermediary, NNPC had defaulted on the stake. You understand? Like, they could not pay for the stake that they had signed on for in Dangote. I don't know if that makes sense anymore, but they could not pay for it anymore. Like, the deadline came and passed, and they could not pay. So they had to what, reduce their stake. They had already paid a certain amount of money, so the stake was no longer at 20%. It was now like 7 point something percent in the company, the refinery. So because of this default of loan or whatever, Dangote bore the loan. Like, I think they absorbed it, or they collected the money somehow to pay for what NNPC defaulted on here. And this is because NNPC was already suffering from what, debt and deficit from other aspects of the economy as well. You get, with other aspects of the economy, they're already suffering from those deficits, so they could not meet up Dangote's the stake that they actually signed on, and so Dangote collected it back. So this collecting it back affected NNPC because they had to debit from what, other aspects of the economy, infrastructure and other sectors of the economy. And so because of this um loss on NNPC part, they can no longer shoulder the subsidy that they were acting on. They can no longer shoulder the subsidy that they were presenting for Nigerians anymore. Hello, Africa. They could no longer present what they could no longer, that subsidy of almost 133 naira. They could no longer cover it for Nigerians anymore, the masses. And so immediately Dangote became the direct had this direct lesson connection to, hello Greta. Really, Dangote had this connection to the marketers direct. Now marketers no longer had to go through NNPC. They can go directly to Dangote refineries. Immediately Nigerians felt it because the prices were higher. There was an increased spike in the prices. Now let me now tell you the spike. Where did I write this note? Did I write it somewhere else? So there was an obvious increased spike in fuel prices across the nation. And this spike were from any book which was made a movie. Do you suggest? You can watch It by Stephen King. You can read It by Stephen King. You can read Revolutionary Road by Richard Yates. Why are you kidding me? Where am I not now? So the prices increased and Nigerians were look at the notice. So the prices increased, October 24, 9th of October 2024. That was when that price increase was. When then the next 2 days, like on 11th October 2024, this minister of finance and chairman of the Naira Crude Sale Implementation Committee now announced that, you people should understand why your fuel prices have increased, without explicitly telling Nigerian masses. They just said now marketers are buying directly from Dangote, and Dangote is selling with the discrimination of what, international oil prices, market supply and demand, forces of market supply and demand, and what other thing? Forces of market supply and demand, and the effect of retail prices. Now, to understand it is that these marketers, like our filling stations now they have to buy fuel at cost price. Before, they were not doing that with NNPC. They have to buy food from Dangote, because Dangote is just it's like a trader now. They have to buy from him at cost price, so they cannot sell it for us anything less than their cost price. Do you get? So now, from 897 naira per liter, which was already high, oh, it was already high, it now moved to 998 naira in Lagos and 1030 naira in Abuja. This is the third time that the fuel prices have increased, and I'm sure the three times the increase in the country last year was probably because of this whole process of NNPC defaulting on that stake, losing, more than how many percent of the stake in the company. Yeah. Now they just have a 7 point something percent stake in the company, all the way from 20% that the government is supposed to have. So other states I don't know about Passing of the Christ here. I've not read it or seen it actually. Is it Passing of the Christ or Passion of the Christ? I've watched Passion of the Christ as a child, but I didn't know there was a book on it. So now other states in the country experience this spike in prices. No more in Kaduna it was 999.22 naira. In Oyo State 960 naira dot 22 kobo. Imo State 980 naira dot 22 kobo. Sokoto 999 naira dot 22 kobo, and Borno 1019 naira dot 22 kobo. That is the immediate spike that happened immediately. And the thing about Nigeria is that Nigeria runs on fuel. Okay, we don't have constant lights, we don't have steady electricity. The government have refused to give the whole country steady electricity. So most businesses in this country, most homes run on fuel. It's not just fuel for cars, it is fuel for generators, fuel for shops, generators in shops, businesses, is fuel. So now, if the fuel is increasing and increasing based on the fluctuations of international market forces of demand and supply, you understand that now this man can create a false scarcity. Since he's the one that marketers are directly buying from, he can hoard his fuel. If he feels maybe he's not making as much money or revenue as he expects, he can hold his fuel, hike up the price, and tell marketers, basically telling Nigerians that, well, things are hard. Fuel prices, international oil prices are hard. Do you know how much it is to refine oil in this country? I don't have light in this country. I'm also using fuel in my refinery. So your fuel price has to increase. So there's absolutely now no protection against any sort of exploitation Dangote and his group can decide to implement on the country whenever he wants to with his refinery. So like, knowing all of this background of Dangote and his freedom of operation in the market, knowing all of this, and you now see that just to allow people to have unions, just to allow your workers to be in unions that will protect them. Hello Zane, hi, welcome to the chat. Just allow your people to be in unions that will protect them. You say no, you are firing them. Thank you for your love for me. I have a lot of Indian friends. I'm so happy to see you today. So this is Nigeria, so love from Nigeria too. So just because the barest minimum of protection that Nigerians at this point can have under his reign as our only source of refined petrol, our only source of PMS that we use to run this entire country, him being our only source of it, guy, you're not saying that they should not have the barest minimum of protection. Thank you, Zane. You need to take care of yourself. You're not saying they should not have the most minimum form of protection from this man's wiles. That's what you're basically saying when you say they should go and look for 9 billion to that Nigerians are wicked. The Nigerians are wicked, unions are wicked. What do you mean wickedness? That is their job. One person is having $24.95 billion. Oh, sorry, Zane. I wish I could, get a translator too for my channel, for my streams. Sorry. So like, it's just So I think my package will soon arrive, and I don't want the stream to be cut off at, to cut me off. So I think I'm going to just end it here. If I feel up to it again, I might. Hello Nkwane, hi. If I feel up to it again, I might come on live, you know, much later in the day, and we'll focus on. Thank you, Zane. Thank you. And we'll focus on very much on this idea. We'll focus on for the book that I was supposed to read today, this book Golden Ass, and maybe by then I would have read some chapters of Ungugi as well, Whip Not Child. Yeah, so expect that from me. Today is Friday. I hope everybody's going to have a lovely weekend. I hope people are having fun today. Today I'm just indoors, and I'm just chilling with my books, trying not to get tired from the horrors of ignorance and lack of awareness and lack of class consciousness and solidarity in my country. I hope you're having a wonderful day in your own country as well. So I'm going to leave you here. Expect me maybe later in the day. Okay, please subscribe for more, and I will see you.